Hello. Hello there, I think. Anyone who is watching, let me know if you can hear me. I've got earphones at the ready just in case the sound quality is a bit off. But yeah, here we are. So long time no see for live streams. Obviously, I think I did this last summer as well. I think I did just bits of live streams, random live chats. But yeah, just get yourselves in the comments. Just get yourselves in the chat if you want to ask anything, or if you want to just chat about anything to do with Sunderland. But yeah, I'm good. Hopefully everybody is okay on a nice Saturday afternoon. Hello, Philip Emerson, just literally coming through. There's the first comment. I'll tell you very quickly, so while I'm waiting for chats to come through, there we go. There's people starting to come through. Stephen Enzel, hello, Stephen, you all right? Rig, I don't know what your actual name is, maybe I'll just go off your YouTube name. Hello there. Rich, I swear I do hello there as an Obi-Wan Kenobi reference. That's just subconscious now. I don't intentionally do it anymore. Richard Bellaby, hello. Are you Michael? I'm all right, Richie. Hopefully you're okay. Likewise with John and Yorkshire Mackham. Greetings, Michael. It's me, Jacob. A nice one. Philip, have you seen what is supposedly new home kit? No, I haven't seen it. You get a lot of concept arts and you get a lot of ideas for kits and all that. I've seen a couple of them that look all right, but most of them I've seen have got colours on them, which is a very, very personal no-no for me. I'm not very keen on stuff like that. Let me know in the comments below, guys. Can you actually hear me? Can you actually hear what I'm saying? Because obviously I want to make sure that people can definitely hear us. Richie Bellaby, thoughts on Barnsley home kit? Okay, that's good, loud and clear. That's a good start. It's a good start, or bad start if you don't want to listen to my dulcet tones. Thanks to everyone who's saying they can hear me. Richard, sorry, thoughts on Barnsley home kit? Yeah, it's not very good, is it? I've seen it, and it doesn't look very. It just looks in design terms. It just looks all over the place. It just doesn't seem to sit well, and quite a lot of people have said it as well. Yorkshire Mackham, I would like to see us go with our retro with our kit this season. I would like to see us have the home and away shirt from the 1996-97 season with the modern Sunderland badge. Yeah, possibly. I know a lot of people have said that they want to go back to the old retro shirt when it comes to the actual new kits. But for me, since I've got into football, this is the badge I've known, and I wouldn't be very happy if we switch back to the old one. But I do know why people want it. I guess it just depends which one you're used to. Richie Bellaby, I'd like to still to see a central badge. I can see that. One thing I would say with the badge, can it actually be stitched on this time and not just a plastic sticker? Because the last 3 seasons, I think ever since, this is this home shirt from the 2019-20 season. I think this is the last time that it was remotely stitched on. So ever since the lockdown season, we've just had plastic stickers and it just looks terrible. It looks tin pot. The kits themselves I've not minded, actually. I think that the lockdown home shirt I thought was really good. I really like that. I think that's still probably the best one of the lot that we've had recently, home shirts. But again, the badge just sticking on just looks really tin pot. It looks really poor. Yeah, exactly, Stephen. It looks cheap. And I think we should be we're a much bigger club than that. But there you go. Anyway, I'm going to quickly talk about this while I wait for any questions to come through, or more questions, I should say. Danny Merton, I just want a year with Hummel, just so the Hummel lovers, shut the Hummel yummers up finally. After you bet on the rubbish Nike templates, I guess. Yeah, well, I'm not too bothered about the Nike thing, but I must tell me in the context. I must be missing some sort of context because a lot of people are annoyed by it. I'll quickly touch on Bailey Wright. I don't know. I'll be interested to see if anyone in the chat has seen his interview. Did any of you watch the interview that dropped this morning on YouTube with Bailey Wright? Basically, a departure sort of interview. I did a video earlier this week about players I would let Sunderland go, and Bailey Wright was one of them. And the main reason he was one of them was because, and exactly Rig, what a bloke he is. Absolute legend. But one of the reasons I said I would let him go is because Bailey Wright's level's about here, which is still a decent standard, but we've gone to about there probably. That's the best way I can sum it up. I feel like with Bailey Wright, he is someone who was crucial in our promotion season. He was absolutely critical in that run towards the end. And again, the image in the playoffs of blood just running down his face. I think I might have still got the picture, actually. Hang on, see if I can find it. Please tell me I still... Yes, I've still got it. That picture, I don't know if you can see it clearly, but that one epitomizes and sums up Bailey Wright. G'day, Yorkshire Mackham. Jacob, I believe you said your name was. I'm terrible with names. But anyway, with Bailey Wright, I think he's someone who played a crucial part in us getting a step closer back to where we belong. But now I don't think he was going to get much game time this coming season. And for his sake, he needs to play regularly, and that's totally understandable. We just got better, I think, what people will perceive to be better options than Bailey Wright. So it's not because I don't rate him, because I'm a big fan of Bailey Wright. However, we've reached a point now where we've moved beyond him, I think. And that's not a bad thing. That just happens. As Sunderland have had players in League One that have given everything for the shirt, but we're starting to move to what we should be starting to look at the Premier League now, rather than, just associating with people from League One. And Bailey Wright, I think, is a bottom end Championship defender. I think if you put them in the right team, I think I'm surprised someone like Rotherham didn't go in for him again. I know he was injured on loan there, but I feel like he would have done something there. But that's just me. But yeah, the interview was class. It was you could see how much it meant to Bailey Wright. And good luck. And I don't. You won't be watching this, obviously, but if you do happen to be, mate, thanks for everything you gave for the club, and best of luck in your career. Right, okay. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at some questions. Sunderland Mad, how do you think we will do this season? Bits of it depend on recruitment. Bits of it depend on incoming signings. But I feel like we have a squad that's good enough to be in the top 6 as of right now. Yes, okay, losing Ahmad is going to... Well, very quickly, I'll answer your second question. Are you going to Gateshead away pre-season? No. I'm basically saving me money for the regular season. Gateshead would probably be the only one I would have been... South Shields would have been the only ones I would have been able to make. But I've got to be in to look after dogs, such as a pet life. But anyway, point is... With what was I going to say? Oh yeah, this season, losing Ahmad is definitely a blow, but we knew that was going to happen for months now. We knew that was going to be the case probably ever since January. Ever since he started to perform really well, we knew that there's a high chance that this was going to be the only time we were going to see him in a Sunderland shirt. And even then, yes, there's talk of Ahmad coming back, but I really don't feel like that's realistic, unfortunately. I'd love to be wrong. Please clip this if I'm wrong. I would absolutely love to be wrong on that. Ahmad is a class individual, but he's too good for the Championship. And I feel like, and there's been reports Man U want to send him out to the Premier League. And for me, that makes complete sense. He's their asset. They want to see whether he's good enough to be near their first team or not. Or if he's not, can he be developed to the point where he is good enough to be in their squad? And a move to the Premier League would be the logical next step, or a move abroad to a top division in Europe. A move to the Championship again just wouldn't. I don't see how that benefits Man United. But again, I would absolutely adore to be wrong. Rig, I think Luke O'Neill. I'm sorry, but in response though, I think we will get top 6 again, providing we get good recruitment and providing we get better luck with injuries. Rig, I think Luke O'Neill is running the risk of being found at his level similar to Ball. Oh, to Bales. I thought you said Balls as in Bailey, as in to Kevin Ball. But shows I can't read properly. O'Neill is a trooper and is the most versatile player I've seen in the Sunderland shirt, but I sadly can't see him in the Prem. No, I can't either. I think Luke O'Neill, I mean, I didn't even know whether Luke O'Neill would be good enough for the Championship. When we got up a year ago, by the way, guys, feel free to like the video if you want to. That would be really appreciated. When he got to the Championship, I just suspected he wouldn't be good enough for that. I wouldn't be good enough for this division. But to be fair, he's more than proved people wrong, or should have proved more than people wrong. I think he's done really well. I think because when we do categories at the end of seasons, like signing of the season, player of the season, young player of the season, game goal of the season, whatever it is, most improved player is a category. And for me, I put Luke O'Neill in that. If you go back to the video I did with Thane, or Tane, as Mad Mistake calls him, I said Luke O'Neill. I believe I did anyway, because I just didn't see him stepping up to the Championship to the level that he has. But fair play to the guy. He's literally the epitome of a never say die attitude. And yes, you can argue all you want about his technical ability, whether it's limited or not. But for me, I think he has more than a good role to play within this squad. But yeah, I do get the point. I think certainly O'Neill is a handy player for this level. But if we get up to the Premier League, I think there's a good chance he'd probably go. Breakfast, what do you think about that lad from Swansea people were talking about signing a bit ago? I'm assuming you mean Morgan Whittaker, but I could be wrong. If you're meaning him, well, he had a good I think he was a good half season at Plymouth a year ago, last season. So to be fair, I would say that Morgan Whittaker, I mean, I wouldn't surprise me if we went for him. It depends. If the fee's quite low, then and I think he might have a year left on his contract, but again, I could be wrong on that. Then fair enough. If we go for him, absolutely fine. My personal preference, if you're talking up front, certainly is Ellis Simms, but we'll get onto that, I'm sure, from Tom's question when I get to it in a minute. Yorkshire Macam, I would like to see us sign Bally Mumba. I would absolutely love to see him back, and I'm still annoyed that we let him go. But however, at the same time, Norwich aren't going to sell, unfortunately. Certainly not to a championship club anyway. Jimmy Two Shoes, what a name. Do you think Ballard would be a good leader at the back should Bath get injured? Possibly. Possibly. I think, again, if Bart gets injured, I reckon it might still be Ballard and '09 at the back, and I reckon '09 could be captain. Danny Merton, don't Tom, I promise I will get your question. Danny Merton, thoughts on Lahaji? Look, right, I can only judge him based off a 15-minute cameo that I watched against Reading, I think it was. And I thought he looked promising then, but Reading didn't really show all that much. But, I think when it comes to Lahaji, I think he could be Ahmed's replacement. I said that from the moment he signed, that he was signed with this coming season in mind. So I would say with Lahaji, wait and see how he looks in pre-season, or see how if we keep him at the start of the season, see how he starts the season. And then it could be similar to like what Jay Matete was last year, where he plays the first half of the season, and if he doesn't quite set the world alight, then maybe go out on loan to another club to see if he gets any better, basically, before we can decide what to do with him from there. Sam says, Trey Hugh, most improved for me. Yeah, I can completely get why you say that. Completely get why you say that. Paul Graham, hey, buddy. Hope you're doing well, brother. Probably a daft suggestion. What about Nesbitt or Duck? I think it is, from Hibs and Aberdeen. I'm assuming you mean Kevin Nesbitt, and I believe he was linked with Millwall, I think it was. So, yeah, I think he's what, late 20s. Correct me if I'm wrong again, but I think, is he not late 20s? And with the way that our model is at the minute, we're not going to go out and splash loads and loads of money. So not certainly on someone unless we can have a good sell-on value. Danny Lucas, would you like to see more of Lahaji at the end of last season, getting ready to try and replace Ahmad? Yeah, fair enough. Pencho Warrior, you've just said, yeah. But, well, he was asking if, but I'm assuming he's talking about Ballymumba. He thought he played for Plymouth permanently. No, he was on loan last year, as Yorkshire Mackham's just pointed out. Fair enough. All right, Tom, we'll get your question. Would you prefer Gelhardt to return in the position he was intended, just behind the striker, or a Simms return? Me personally, a Simms return, but unlikely because of the fee Everton not wanting. Well, I'm a fan of both of them. I think let's quickly touch on Joe Gelhardt. I think with Joffy, the problem he had was, and again, a lot of people wrote him off way too quickly and really unfairly, in my opinion, where he was written off because he wasn't setting the world alight when he was playing one up top on his own. He was basically when we had no focal point. I think with Joffy, I love his work. I think his work rate was great. I think technically he's actually really good. I think technically he's a good player. But the problem was we signed him to play up top with Ross Stewart. And as soon as Ross Stewart got injured for the whole season, that completely scuppered that plan. So it meant that Joffy was stuck up top on his own. And as much as I like Christian Speakman and Stuart Harvey, that's where they do deserve criticism, because they basically left him hanging dry up front on his own. But yeah, I think with Joffy, I really like him. But with Leeds coming down, I just don't see him coming back here now. I would have took him on loan again, personally, if it was up to me. I'd have both of them, Simms permanently and Joffy on loan again. But I think that Leeds are going to be stupid to try and loan him to us, because we should be competing where they're going to want to be next season in terms of the table. We should be near the top as well. So as far as I'm concerned, to answer the question, if you ask me out the two of them, if one of them was going to happen, I'd say Simms, just because I think I could see that being a permanent deal, unless Everton give him a new contract and then loan him out again. And I'd take Simms again on loan. I'm a fan of Simms. I don't get how some people don't rate him, but that's their opinion. That's fair enough. In my opinion, I don't get it anyway. I feel like Simms is someone who people say technically he's not very good, where I do disagree with that. I think Simms is technically a pretty good player. Still things to work on, but we have to remember he's 22, 23 at oldest, I think. But he's proved he can handle himself in this division. That sounds wrong. He's proved he can perform in this division. He's scored goals in this division, and he's got the potential to get much better. For me, it makes sense. But if you're talking about the supposed £7 million fee that Everton are apparently looking at, then for me, I agree. Steven Simms is quite good in the air. I think for me with Simms, if the fee of £7 million is accurate, then yeah, don't sign him. I think anything up to about 4 million, maybe 4.5. I think it's worth it. Beyond that, considering he's got a year left on his contract, I think Everton are asking a bit too much there. But again, it depends. I trust the recruitment team to see if they don't get Simms. I personally, I don't even want to watch anyone, but it's someone called SCFC Exiled Mackham, and I've been watching more of his content recently, and he's got the dedication to get videos every day. And he said, in his words, so this is his words, that not signing Simms would be a mistake. And I personally agree with that, because I think if he signs to anyone in this league, he is someone who will get goals, personally. So in my own opinion, I think we should be getting, if you're asking, I think Simms permanently, but if it is £7 million. Bear in mind, it's Football Insider that said that, so they don't tend to have the best reputation. But if it is that's the case, then no. Tom, yeah, Everton rejected £4 million from Ipswich. I saw that, but East Anglian Daily Times, I think it is, they're basically Ipswich's version of the Sunderland Echo. They apparently were saying, reports in Ipswich were saying that was a bit wide of the mark. So it looks like they haven't bid that much. But again, if both stories come out, then one person's source clearly isn't telling the truth. Let's see, what else is there? Steve M. Haven't seen many people say this, but in my opinion, we need another goalkeeper in. If Pato gets injured, we only have Bass. Then who is our third? I think I would prefer. Well, it looks like Alex Bass could be going to Leyton Orient, and if that's the case, then we definitely need another keeper. What I suspect will happen if Bass goes is we will have another key person come in for second choice, and I think we'll promote someone from the academy as third choice. Partly because it fits what we're trying to do, and partly, let's be honest, because it saves money. Which I'm not necessarily against, by the way. But there you go. What else? Stephen, do you think Barr can be good next season? Absolutely. I'm a fan of Abdullah Barr. I've liked the look of him a lot when I've seen him. I think he's got a bit of athleticism. I can never say that word. He's got industrialism. Again, I don't know if that's even a word. He's got energy about him. I think he's actually quite an important player. I think certainly long term he will become good for us. Next season, will he become good? If he's developing properly, and again, we've got Tony Mowbray again by the looks of it. Unless things start really bad next season, then hopefully we'll have Tony Mowbray throughout the whole season, and then that's where Barr could really benefit from that. Sam says the first couple of chances Joffy had for us, he missed, kind of made up the minds of most Sunderland fans on him. Sadly, I think he did his best as a lone striker. I will admit with Joffy, I think that he did miss chances that he should be burying. His finishing certainly could have something to be desired, but again, I think. It's a lot of, and it's not just Sunderland fans. A lot of people do this. Of football fans, and it really annoys me when if you're not world class in the first 2-3 games, then you're rubbish and you've made your mind up and you're not willing to have any flexibility on that. For me, I think the way I like to look at it is I don't like to judge players properly unless it's really apparent early on that they're not good enough. I'm talking like Callum McFadzean level, for example. I would say that with judging players, I think you should wait for at least a dozen or so appearances to start to look at them properly and see what they're about. And it goes both ways. We can't just say someone's going to be really good based off 10 minutes. I've liked the look of Lahadji in 10 minutes, for example, but I can't really judge if he's a good player because I've barely seen any of him. I need to see what he's like. I need to see a sustained run in the team, see what happens. And we've got to remember, it takes players time to settle. I think a lot of fans need to remember that. It takes a lot of time for players to settle and not just judge them straight away and write them off. But obviously, it doesn't mean you can't judge anyone. For example, let's talk about Diallo, because here's an example. Yorkshire Mackham. I suspect this is a joke question. Penny well punted. Do you miss Diallo? Yorkshire Mackham skinted me, mate. I pay for first class to make sure he's gone. Oh, yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, with Diallo, I mean, look, for example, I don't think Diako's good enough, but the difference is we've watched enough of him to make a judgment. We haven't just judged him after two months of the season, or even 2 games, because some people did that with Pierre Ekwa, for example, which completely baffled me. But again, it's opinions. But for me, Diallo is someone who wasn't good enough and was never. I thought he was okay in League One, but okay, probably in that League One, he wasn't good enough. We needed to be getting promoted, and in the Championship, you can tell he's definitely not suited to this. He's probably not suited to the English leagues, to be honest. So good luck to the guy. Penny well put it. With all these new defenders coming in, I don't think 09 will feature as much as he's not above other midfield players. What's your thoughts on where 09 fits next season? For me, I think 09 is better in defence than midfield. I think in League One you could have got away with 09 in midfield because the game doesn't run in by. You got to remember the Championship's got much better technical players, even though the league certainly hasn't set the world alight in the way that I thought it would. The Championship's still much better than League One because there's still more individual quality in it. And I just feel like 09 would have. I just feel like with 09. He is someone who maybe might get found out a bit. He might be able to do a job in midfield against someone like a Rotherham or something like that. Someone, or maybe someone like that. I think maybe against a Sheffield Wednesday, he might do all right there. But I think he's better in defence. If you ask him where I think he fits, I think he'll probably be a squad option in defence. But again, we'll have to wait and see. It depends, because if he's not going to play, then obviously he's going to want to move. And fair enough. What's the next one? Yorkshire might be interesting to see Southampton and Leicester in the Championship because they haven't been in it for a while, and it'll be interesting to see how they could cope. Yeah, see, I didn't think I thought Leicester. My hot take going into the season so far, before Leicester made the signings they did and before they got that Man City coach, was that I didn't think Leicester would be in the top 6. Not because the squad's terrible, but because of a cultural problem. Because some Leicester fans have said that there was apparently an attitude problem behind the scenes, and that sort of stuff, as we found out, takes a while to get rid of. It takes a while to eradicate that. But I have to admit, Harry Winks and Connor Cody for the Championship, fair enough. Especially Connor Cody, I think that's a really, really good signing for this level. Southampton's a funny one because I think they'll lose James Ward-Prowse. But I also feel like if they keep, maybe Che Adams possibly, but if they keep one of Che Adams and Adam Armstrong, you've got a player who should be hitting 20-odd goals in the Championship at least. But you're right, though. It definitely will be interesting to see how they cope. And Leeds as well. Leeds have been linked with Daniel Farke, and apparently the current Norwich sporting director, but who's going to be leaving, Stuart Webber. There's been talks he's going to Leeds. But the thing is, the longer that goes on, the more it eats into pre-season, the more it eats into potential transfers. That could really be that could be something to be wary about, and that's what we hope for, because we're going to be it's going to be very competitive at the top next season, and we want to be in amongst that. So you want to have as much a head start as possible, which is why we need to get off to a good start with our fixtures, because the first 2 months on paper are pretty kind for the most part. Tom Oxford, oh no, here we go. Well, actually, these next 2 comments are kind of linked. Burnley bid third bid for Jack Clarke of £9 million. What's your thoughts? Clubs don't make 3 bids for a player without wanting to talk to the player and seeing if he wants to move. And then Ian Graham has subsequently said, does Burnley realise Donald and Sam Pants do not own Sunderland? We do not give players away on the cheap anymore. Yeah, okay. To answer those questions sort of in a bunch. First of all, to quickly answer Ian's question, well, they clearly don't realise them, do we? Because if it was Donald, look, I don't hate Donald as much as a lot of other people do, but even I admit, under Donald and Methven, Clarke probably would have been gone at like 7 million, more than likely, maybe even 5 or 6, to be honest. But, I think, to Tom's question, £9 million is an insult. It's a joke. I've seen some people say, we should be asking for 25 to 30 million. I think that's unrealistic. We are not going to be getting anywhere near that. What I think should be realistic at a minimum is between 15 to 20. We have to bear in mind that Tottenham have a sell-on clause, and whatever we make from Jack Clarke, if he is sold, goes to Spurs. So for me, we have to protect ourselves. If you're asking for me what we should be looking at, I'd argue 20 million plus for a number of reasons. Young player, English player. There's an English tax pretty much. Believe it or not, that is a thing. A winger. Forward players goal for more than defenders do. He's just had 24 goal contributions across all competitions last season, and crucially, he's got another 3 years left on his contract. Now, Leeds, if I'm right, sold Clarke for 10 million, I think, to Spurs in 2019, 4 years ago, when he barely proved himself. Why then all of a sudden is he worth 9 million now? For me, the minimum that he's worth is 15 million to 20. And I'm talking 15 with significant sell-on clauses, by the way. Truthfully, again, we should be probably looking between around about 20 million, because you can compare all you want, but, like João Pedro went for 30, Alex Scott's going for 25 million. Now, I know that they're not, in some senses, João Pedro isn't comparable because he's been in the Premier League, but Alex Scott, I think that's a perfectly reasonable thing. If Bristol City are wanting £25 million for a midfielder, then a winger who should be more expensive than a midfielder, why is he not worth that much? You can get ridiculous, but that's today's market. If Burnley, and certainly Burnley fans, if they don't like it, well, tough luck. That's just how it is. Why should we sell for much less than what we believe he's worth? And that's the crucial bit, what we believe he's worth, not what the selling club wants to pay. Sorry, the buying club wants to pay. For me, I'm glad that we're doing this. I'm really hoping we play particularly hard ball here, because Jack Clarke in today's market is worth that money. He's worth around 15 to 20, no question. Regardless of the fact you say, he's not gone to the Premier League, he's not proved it in the Premier League. Neither did Keane Lewis Potter 12 months ago, and yet he went to Brentford, I think it was, for 16 to 20, I think I read. Again, why is Clarke worth any less than that? And if anything, Clarke's numbers are more impressive, because isn't Keane Lewis Potter a striker? If Keane Lewis Potter is a striker, then Clarke's a winger. So surely Clarke's winger numbers are more impressive. I might have that wrong with Potter, but I'm not sure. Next one. Yorkshire Mackham. When we first got Diallo in the 2021 season, it was 21-22, but I'm a sad man for stuff like that. He was decent, but he got injured, and that ruined him, in my opinion. Yeah, I think that could be a fair argument, to be fair. Phil Peacock, if we don't get Simms, who would be your preferred 1 or 2 strikers? Well, actually, I'm going to be doing a video about players I want Sunderland to sign. So if you're assuming we don't get Simms, which there's every possibility we don't, it's a funny one. There's a few strikers I'm looking at, and I'm thinking, hear me out on this. This could be completely mental and people really disagree with it. Josh Madger's just left Bordeaux for a free transfer, I believe anyway. Now, the way he left didn't sit right with me and a lot of other Sunderland fans. I think if Josh Madger really wanted to stay, I think he could have signed a contract regardless of what his agent did. However, because he's left on a free transfer, and I think I've seen links that he's linked to Fulham and linked to Rangers, so maybe that transfer isn't realistic, but I personally disagree. I think we should be looking at signings like that. I think for free, James Copley said this on the Sunderland Echo podcast. I think we should be looking at players like that. For free, certainly. It can't hurt to at least ask the question. But again, will Sunderland fans want him, though, after what happened and the way he left? I'm not sure. But maybe that, people like Sam Surridge, maybe Jerry Yates, I don't know. It's a hard one there because obviously strikers are harder to come by for decent prices because they're obviously a premium. They cost a bit more. Breakfast. Who do you think we might let? Do you think we might let Ballard go to West Ham since we signed Triantis? My gut instinct says we won't. I think if there's any player who we might let go, it'll be Jack Clark and maybe Ross Stewart, and that's a whole other conversation. But if you're talking right now in players who are tied down for longer and who are sorted contract-wise, then Clark is the only one I could see maybe us letting go. And I'm talking players who've got more than 1 year on their deal. But if you're asking Ballard, no, I don't think so. But I can't guarantee it because money talks. All right. Hey, Kyle. All right, buddy. All right, buddy. How are you and all the lads? Honestly, I hope Keel's all right because he's an absolute nutcase, but I absolutely love him. I was almost going to swear there. Right. Oh, Jesus. Hang on. Right. Okay, then. Do you think Simms is too slow for our style of play now? I can see why you say that, but personally, no. I think a lot of the style of play involves getting it down the wings and getting it in quick transition. And I think Simms could be a good link-up player. That's just my opinion, but you might disagree, which is fine. David Jotlin, Nathan Teller, and 60 million for Jack Clark. Bye, Burnley. Nathan Teller was on loan from Southampton, mate. So Nathan Teller's at Southampton instead, unfortunately. Yorkshire, Southampton will do a Burnley. I think Leicester and Leeds will follow them. Leicester will follow them, but Leeds might just miss out. Yeah, that's a fair argument. I thought Leicester would be the one to miss out until they started doing the moves in the transfer market. But Leeds depends what happens with them. Anyway, pundit. Let's be honest. How many of you scouts did Diaku mother sleep with to keep from a professional contract? Oh God, that's the only reason I can see how he got into the professional game. Yeah, well, no comment on that one. Malcolm Delight, Sunderland till I die. I'm glad good times are back for the fans. When your life is not too good and your team ain't doing good, life ain't no good. Mate, believe me, we have had plenty of practice. We've had plenty of practice at that. Yorkshire Malcolm, Salmon Panthers now at Charlton. I feel for you, Charlton fans. Hey, Tane is back. All right, mate. Danny, if I was Jack, I'd be insulted with the offers Burnley are putting a talent to go. Never mind the club. Well, apparently Jack Clark settled here. Apparently he wants to stay. So if that's the case, then... But again, money talks. We'll have to wait and see. Forehand flick. I'm hoping I've got that right, but I'll butcher things terribly. Love the channel. I watch your videos from all the way in... Oh, I'm going to get this wrong. Adelaide, Australia. How are the lads? Well, thank you very much, mate. Much appreciated. It's mental to think when people from abroad watch your videos. It's crazy. Yorkshire Mackham, 2 comments. Mackham, like, definitely. Sunderland's had late signs when New Sunderland would sign multiple players very early, which I like. Well, I think we will. I think Sunderland will still get players later on in the window, but it's a case of... Sorry, I think... If you're talking in terms of Sunderland do tend to go for players later on in the window, but that's because we go for players from Premier League clubs and they won't let them go until their business is done. And I don't mind that. I'm happy to wait as long as we get the right signings. But we shall see. I would like to see us sign Chong from Birmingham. The only way I could see that happening is if we sell Clark, because I'd imagine that Birmingham would want a fair chunk for Chong. Sam Dickinson, what's the spending budget this season? I'm not privy to that sort of information, mate. I would imagine it's not that much unless a player is sold. Then might be something in there. Zach Vipotnik. Again, I get this wrong. Honestly, but from Coventry, although Coventry and Leicester want him as well, and the French striker from Rennes was linked with Abline, I think he's called. Well, who knows? We'll have to wait and see. It wouldn't surprise me if we don't go for someone like Simms and we end up getting someone in from abroad, even though I personally really want Simms, but there you go. Then says, this might be an unpopular opinion, but if I had to choose, I would rather lose Clark than Ballard, because personally, I think Clark would be easier to replace, in my opinion. Yeah, I think I would agree with that. Jeff, you cheeky bugger. All cute. Quiet. Do you have a new internet provider? Cheeky sod. To quickly address Stain's second point, I feel like I think if you're asking me who would I prefer to sell, it probably would be someone like Jack Clark over Dan Ballard because I believe that Clark is, well, I wouldn't say easier. Well, he's easier to replace rather because I think there are players out there we can get, and I think Clark you can get more money for as well, which means you'll find it easier to sign replacements and more potentially good ones as well. Um, but yeah, I think if I had to pick out, I don't want to sell either of them, obviously, but if I had to pick out of the two of them, who I would rather sell, it would be Clark because, and I agree with Thane actually. I think that we would find it easier to replace Clark than Ballard because Ballard, I think if you sell him, you're going to find it hard to get players of his quality available for the likes of 2, 3, 4 million. You just won't do it. Or do it. Thane will get that. Right, PRV. Bring in Perkins on loan from Leeds with a buyout clause. Jack Clark worth more than £30 million. Need more. We need young Benz who can put the goals in the net. We need 4 strikers. Easier said than done, unfortunately, my friend. Kevin Caden. See, I told you I butcher names, and I haven't even got an excuse with it being the morning. What about Archer from Aston Villa, who was a Borough? Yes. Whether that happens or not, I very much doubt that's going to happen because I'd imagine he'll either be at Villa in Villa's squad next year or he'll go back to Borough if he's loaned out again. But we should be all over signings like that, definitely. Me personally, I think the next striker has to be 21 or over because we can't go into a season with an unfit Stewart and T2 teenage strikers. We definitely need it. For me, with the striker situation, I definitely think we need to at least get one more. And that's assuming Stewart stays and is fit. Me personally, I'm the 5 signing, the video about the signings I want us to make. I'm going to base that on the assumption that either Stewart is unavailable through injury or if we've sold him. And if that's the case, then we need another 2 strikers. I don't personally think we need 4 because I think we do tend to play one up top most of the time. However, if we go into it with any less than 3, then that's a disgrace, in my opinion. And as much as I like Speakman and Harvey, and I don't think people should judge them just on the striker situation, I do believe that that is something definitely criticism worthy if they don't have at least 3 strikers on the books by the end of the window. Penny well put it. Definitely an unpopular opinion thing. I'd keep them. Definitely unpopular that thought. Then I'd keep both. I think a lot of fans would love to keep both. Thomas says, "Don't get me wrong. I want us to keep all our players, especially if we want to try and improve next season. Well, we should be looking to. But there you go." Tom says, "I think the only way Sunderland continue to buy players for 3 to 4 million is the sale of a player. This is an unpopular opinion, but I would cash in on Stewart if he doesn't want to sign a new contract." Well, Tom, if it is an unpopular opinion, then I'm an unpopular opinion with you because I completely agree with you. Let's quickly touch on the Ross Stewart thing, actually. And breakfast, I'll kind of tie into this because I've said this for a while. Could you see Stewart going to Luton? I feel like he's looking for a move with no news of him signing a new contract. Yes, I've said for a couple of weeks that I think Luton's a type of club that will go for Stewart because if you look at Luton, they've got to the Premier League and got the money, but most of the money that they are going to cash in and bank from being in the Premier League for a year, for even one season, is going to go towards their new stadium. Now that means they're not going to be able to have as big a budget to spend, and I could see them going for someone like Ross Stewart because I can see him fitting into the way they play, and it's in the Premier League. So, Stephen, to answer your question, I'm literally terrible with technology. Maybe if I can work StreamYard, I will get Thane on occasionally, but he has to want to do it. Who was it who said Chancellor Palpatine? Yorkshire when Chancellor Palpatine loses at Payne Connect Force. Right, I promise I'll get back on topic. With Ross Stewart, let's get this out of the way. I like Ross Stewart. We all know how Ross Stewart has been integral to the way we played. He scored 26 goals the year we got promoted to the Championship, and he got 10 goals in 13 appearances last season. I'm convinced he would have been top goal scorer had he been fit the whole entire season. Now, however, I'm getting sick and fed up of this contract saga now. For me, it's dragged on far too long. And I do get we're not going to get the contract sorted while he's still recovering from an Achilles injury, which apparently is a nasty injury to recover from. So fair enough. But I would say if we get towards the end of August and he still hasn't signed a new contract, then I would say if a good bid comes in for him, I would cash in as well. Because you've got to get to the point now where this is Sunderland AFC, not Ross Stewart AFC. And I like Ross Stewart, don't get me wrong. But he's claimed in the past he wants to stay. And in my opinion, he needs to back up those claims with actions, not just say you want to stay and then stall and stall and stall and stall and then not sign a new deal. And Josh Madger did that exact same situation. We have to avoid something like that happening again. So for me with Ross Stewart, I would cash in completely. If someone like Luton came in for him, then you probably could be asking Bear in mind, he's got a year left on his contract and he's had 2 massive injuries. We're not going to get any more than, at very most, 6-7 million. And that's if a Premier League club comes in for him, really. We're probably more likely to get around 5 million, I would say, considering his situation with his contract. I saw some people asking for 15 on social media because I asked on Twitter, given the circumstances with his injuries and contract length left, what would you consider for Ross Stewart if we did sell him? And some people said 10 to 15. I'm like, guys, we're not going to get that much, unfortunately. But I would say about £5 to £7 million. I think if Luton particularly bid for him, if it was adamant he's definitely not signing a new deal, then sell him, get some money, because at least you've still made a profit, and I think that money can then be used towards finding a replacement. Even though it will be harder, don't get me wrong, but I think that's what we should be doing. Let's see. Terry Ward says no way. I'm assuming. Oh, right. Okay. No way you'd sell Clark. I thought you meant Josh Madger there for a minute. No way I'd sell Clark. Look, I don't want to sell Clark either, but there has to be. But look, money does talk, though. That's the thing. You have to bear in mind that this model. We might if I put it this way, if we sold Clark for, say, let's say 20. Let's say Spurs get, I don't know, 25% sell-on clause. Let's say you sell Clark for 20. Despite the sell-on clause, you get maybe 15, whether it's in installments, whatever. With that, you could get 2 really, really good players to replace him. So I wouldn't be against that. However, I agree. I don't want to sell him, but I think people are going to have to accept that eventually one or 2 players will be sold. I'll be annoyed if we did that across the whole team, but if we sold 1 or 2 players, I think we could probably afford it, providing we replace them well enough, which is the challenge. Right, what's the next one? Pennywell Pundit, I break the model and bank for Archer. I wouldn't mind that, but again, how much is he going to cost? And even then, Villa would want to use him, I think, surely. So, but there you go. Whoever's Creasy's, yeah, wait. Gutted to see Bailey Wright leave. You need characters like that around the place. I agree with you, mate. I completely agree with you. I actually think when it comes to something like Bailey Wright, I feel like that he is a key character, and I've liked the look of him a lot. And I think in League One in particular, I rate him very highly in League One. He's a good no nonsense defender, and I love stuff like that in defence. People who just love to defend first and foremost, and then if they've got a bit of technical ability, great. I've said before, I think Bailey Wright's good enough for a bottom half championship team, but again, for the way that we are and the direction we're trying to go in, I think we've moved beyond him. But for round the place, I think he will be. I think character-wise, he'll be a big miss, definitely. Then Tane says, hang on, let's get this up properly. Right. We might need another left back because apparently Serkan Elise might not be fully fit for the start of the season. Potentially. We'll wait and see what happens with that one. I imagine that it's not going to be a position we're going to look to scout heavily. You got to remember 09 can play full back, so we might end up. So no one else, we might end up using him. Yeah, screw it. Why not? Play Ross Stewart at left back if he's fit enough. I want to see what kind of resolve our model has in selling players. Again, it depends on the figure, doesn't it? But I do get you. I do get your point. Then, Bailey was a great, fantastic human being. Wish him all the best. Agreed. Steven says, like I said on Terry Channel, it's worrying about his injury. I'm assuming you mean Ross Stewart, and in which case I agree with you. Jeff Bozek, do you think fees for players are getting out of control? I mean, 80 million for Kane with 1 year left. Well, of course it is, but unfortunately that's the market, isn't it? I think 80 million in today's market for Kane, even with a year left, I think is pretty much fair. I think it's very fair. But there you go. That's in the market. You know, I mean, God knows what's going to happen when money dries up eventually. Anthony, yeah, a couple of people. Anthony saying sad to see Bailey go. Yeah, quite a few people agreeing. Sad to see Bailey go. Stephen Thornton, Quinn out first 3 months. Fans said he was no good, but ended up a hero. Yeah, we'll see with that one. Right, then. Jesus, Tane. Let's have a look. Let's get through some of your comments. And there's right. Let's see. If we did sell Cork, I could see us signing Morgan Whittaker as a replacement. Potentially, and he would cost a lot less, I would imagine. Tane says, I'll keep calling you Tane, honestly. Cheers, Terry. And there's Huggins, who can do a job either side if he can stay fit. Now, I like Huggins, but again, can you count on him to stay fit? That's the problem. To be honest, now, I would agree, maybe another 2 strikers wouldn't be a bad shout, especially when Stewart's not fully fit and whether he's fully committed or not. Like I said, I'm just basing it off the fact that Stewart could be unavailable through either being sold or injured next season. And I think we could do it. So I'm basing it, if we're going to sell Stewart, put it this way, I would take selling Stewart and using that money to get at least a striker to replace him, maybe another player on loan, something like that. Ryan Hansen, biggest club in England. Well, right, East London, of course. If I'm taking me bias out of it, personally for me, it's one of Man United or Liverpool. Personally, I'd probably maybe just edge towards Man United just because of the Ferguson years. But if you ask, I mean, I like Liverpool much better than Man United. I absolutely prefer Liverpool to Man United as a club. But if you ask, I mean, I think it's like Liverpool, Man United, and Arsenal. Man United, Liverpool, Arsenal in that order, I think are the three biggest. And by the way, that order is literally like that. It's neck and neck, the size of club. Those three for me, undisputedly, the biggest in the country. Man City are probably going to be edging into that conversation soon enough. Chelsea and Tottenham still below them in the big six category. And then in the second tier, like tier 2 of big clubs, I would say your likes of your Evertons, your Aston Villas, your Newcastle, and your Sunderland. I think us four are in that category. And then I think we're bigger than everyone below that, basically. Not saying there aren't other big clubs, because there are, but I think we're not bigger than us. Right, let's have a look. Tom again. Let's have a look. With the midfield we now have, with Bellingham, Ekwa, Neil, Evans, and Barr, I don't believe Matete will get game time, and I believe a loan move will be good again. However, a championship loan. Yeah, I'd probably agree with that. I think we need to get, if Plymouth would have him back and they want to have him again, then I would get him back on loan to Plymouth because he knows the environment, knows the manager, knows the fans, knows the players, and you're in the championship. It ticks a lot of boxes. And I agree with you. I like Matete a lot, actually. I think there is a player there. However, I just don't see him being someone that we're going to use because of the options you've just mentioned. And bearing in mind, we might end up going for more midfielders. It just depends. Central midfield is probably the one area where we're quite well stocked, actually. But I agree. I think Matete, we need to get him out on loan. We need to get him out on loan maybe to Plymouth. I think that would just be a logical move, in my opinion. Superman 93. Where's him? My mate Ryan, who's not into football whatsoever, is into death metal. Not the type of person you think I'd be friends with, but we're very close. Let's have a look. Jesus, the wind's going big outside. Tain says, apparently he's been doing very well in pre-season, so this could be a season to feature more, providing he's staying fit. Is this Huggins you're talking about, Thane? Because obviously I'm going, because my disorganized way of going through comments means you could be talking about practically anyone. The next one. Peter Harvey. Who would Sunderland's captain be for the season? Luke O'Nien or Gooch? Corey Evans injury prone. Okay, if you're talking out with them two, then I would say probably Luke O'Nien, personally. But if Gooch got the captain's armband, I wouldn't complain too much, to be fair. Dane, Bart to be captain, in my opinion. Yep, there's another one. He could be captain. Maybe Pritchard as a left field suggestion. I don't know. Just by definition of being experienced, I suppose. Rosie Stoker. Which of our own academy players will we see getting game time in the senior squad this season? Now, Thane might know more than me here. Am I right in thinking, is it a player called Adam Richardson? Or have I got that wrong? Because he was mentioning to me during our season review, our videos, that there's a goalkeeper that we would be looking to replace Jacob Carney initially, and possibly even Alex Bass as second choice. So Rosie Thane might end up knowing more than me about this, but I would imagine it's going to be Adam Richardson if I have that name right. And I probably don't because my butchering is horrendous. Superman 93, yeah, much love, brother. Likewise to you, mate. Best SCFC channel around. Thanks very much, man. There's obviously great SCFC channels. There's many that I consider better than myself, but there you go. I'm still happy enough that some people seem to want to talk to us. And the fact that 50 people around about then are wanting to watch me waffle on and talk rubbish. Ian Wilkinson, hi Michael. If Stewart was any other player, would you be calling for him to go? I would cash in now. That's an interesting question. Sorry, I'll just quickly address things, Ian, then I'll then I'll come back to you. Zach Johnson or Harry Gardner, maybe. Oh, yeah, Adam Richardson, number 2 of Bass Leaves. There you go, one of them. What Thane said. Sounds like hot fuzz. Right, so anyway, Stuart Bates, another player, would you be calling for him to go? I would cash him now. Well, I don't know what you mean by if he was any other player, but I would say, it depends, it's a funny one. I would call for them to go if they're not going to commit long-term to the club, if that's what you mean. The reason I say Stuart is just because we've had a long discussion now with his agent and his representatives, apparently, for the last probably the last year, to be perfectly honest. And the fact that an agreement still, and I know he's had injuries, but the fact an agreement still hasn't been reached is really starting to annoy me now. And I feel like if he wants to stay, then again, he needs to back it up by signing a contract, not just stall over a contract and say that he wants to stay, but then contradict himself by not signing a contract. And don't get me wrong, the terms have to be right. You have to be right. You can't screw over Stewart at the same time. But again, I need to see commitment from him to say that he actually wants to stay long-term as well. But again, I'm with you. I think if he's not going to sign a contract and if it's come apparent in the next month or so, then cash in and get as much money as you can. Because whatever money we get, we will make a profit because we've spent 300,000 on him. And ultimately, if you sell him for even, say, 5 million, you've made a profit and you signed a player who helps you get promoted out of League One, which is worth quite a bit in itself. Like Peter Harvey. Chris Rigg to be used as a sub. Has Chris Rigg signed yet? I believe he's signed a 2-year scholarship. I don't know whether the club's announced it, but if it hasn't happened, it looks like it's all but set to happen. Ian Wilkinson, he hasn't committed for 2 seasons now. I totally agree, Michael. Yeah, fair enough. You know, like I said, it's Sunderland AFC, not Ross Stewart FC. I like Ross Stewart a lot, and I would love him to sign a contract, but we can't be held to ransom by him. We just cannot. Tane again. I've seen a lot of under-23 sign new contracts lately, even Chris Rigg, which is massive considering he could have joined the Mags. Well, it's not just the Mags, but Man United linked with him as well. So I think the reputation we're now getting as a club that gets youth players in and gives them a good opportunity to develop, I think is a good thing. It's a good sign that our reputation's turned around. And in turn, that will convince more youth players to come to us and still try to, kind of keep them, basically. Because if you look again, and I keep coming back to this, but if you look at when we had Donald and you look at what happened there, we were selling academy players left, right, and centre for peanuts. Ballymumba was like 350,000. And from Norwich's point of view, that's an absolute steal. Absolute steal from Norwich's point of view. But for me, as far as I'm concerned, that was an insult, and it was a joke that we basically sold him for that much. And hopefully the days like that are long gone. But yeah, we'll wait and see. Let's have a look. What's the next one? Ollie Bellwood. We should try and do what Coventry are doing with Gyökeres, in my opinion. I'm assuming I don't know whether you mean with Stewart or Clark. I think if you mean with Clark, then absolutely I agree with you there. If you're talking with Stewart, then unfortunately, I think the circumstances are a bit different. Where Coventry, actually saying that, are they though? Because Gyökeres has a year left on his contract. I think the big difference is because Gyökeres, like Stewart, has a year left on his contract at Coventry. But the difference is he's been playing regularly. He hit something like, 20 goals, 25 goals or something last season in the Championship, and he's been regularly fit. That's where the price tag comes from. That's why I'm saying if Stewart had been fit consistently all season, then that's the price tag we should have been looking at. 20 to 20, even with a year left on his contract, 15 to 20 million. That would be something we should be looking at. But again, circumstances, unfortunately, because of injuries, were different, I'm afraid. But I do like your point. Ian says, now that Liverpool have signed 2 midfielders, would it be worth asking about Henderson? And Thanen says Henderson to return in a year or so because he said he would like to return home at some point. I would absolutely be one. Again, biggest thing, wages. I think when Sunderland get back to the Premier League, I think Henderson will probably come back to Sunderland. But, to return to the club that is his club, he supports us. So, unless he's done a U-turn and supported Liverpool now, but I very much doubt he has. So, for me, I think with Henderson, I think he's definitely someone worth looking at in the near future, in the next couple of years. Because you've got to remember, I imagine he's not going to start regularly for Liverpool now, because Liverpool need to move towards younger players who can develop into a good captain's role. But again, Henderson's is a key midfielder for them, I think, and it's good that people are finally starting to appreciate how good he actually is, and not just not rate him because he's not a fancy player, or doesn't seem to be a fancy player anyway. Had we got promoted last season, I think Hendo could have come back this summer. Yeah, possibly. Again, it comes down to wages, but as it's his boyhood club, he probably willing to take a pay cut, I suppose. Tom says, as well as Henderson, Pickford would be perfect to help Pato grow and develop. I think, again, had we got promoted, maybe, but I think Pickford, again, wages would be mental. But I like the thinking, though. But we shall see with that one. Ian Will says, no, not Pickford. How dare you? You're not a fan of Jordan Pickford? Goodness me. That's an insult. If you're not a fan of him, that's fine. But I strongly disagree. I think Pickford's a very, very good goalkeeper. But regardless, again, it's one of those where we're going to be seeing more academy players come through the youth ranks now because, and probably sign longer contracts just because of the style of club we are now in terms of developing youth talent and developing, giving them a good chance for the first team. But we shall see. Right, let me ask you a question because we're approaching the 50-minute mark. I might go on for another 10 minutes or so, maybe go to an hour, and then we'll start to wrap it up. But here's my question to you guys. What's your expectations for Sunderland this season? And I mean, realistically, I know people are going to go, walk the league with 107 points or something, but no. I mean, given the teams coming down, given how tough the Championship is going to be next year, but even despite that, what do you actually think? Well, here we go. Here's the first one. Peter Harvey. I think Semenyo will be a good striker. I hope so. I very much agree. I very much hope he will be. I'm hoping for automatic promotion. Diallo will be a bonus. Sunderland fans love him. Anything is possible. Try young Chilean strikers. Fair enough. Terry Ward apparently probably isn't as but I don't know if you're not as confident or if you think you've got perspective, which is fair enough. But you said mid-table. I personally would say, and I agree with Ian and Thane here, and Tom for that matter, where they've said that top 6 as a minimum. And I agree with that. I think any less than top 6 next season isn't good enough now. I think last season we got top 6, and to an element there was a free hit element about it. But for me, this season cannot be that because again, with the size of the club we are, we can only go so long being in the Championship without starting to look towards the Premier League. And for me, at minimum, match what we did last year. I think in some ways, if you offered me playoffs now, I'd probably take it as long as we went into it with not a half crook squad. As long as we went into it with a close to our full fit squad, then I think I probably would accept top 6 because the league's going to be tough. But Breakfast says generally think we could reach top 2 if we stay consistent. And again, Tom said target should be top 2, but top 6 at the minimum. Ian Banks top 6. Ian Graham hopefully top 6. Sam says I expect us to be in the race for the playoffs. If we're not even amongst the playoff teams, then that's not good enough. Completely agree with you. Paul Graham says 2nd or 3rd. Goodness me, I'd love to get 2nd. If we got automatic promotion, I'd be buzzing with that. Donald Doyle, how far do you think the Mags will go in the Champions League? I guess it depends on. Well, I'm trying to forget about Newcastle in the Champions League. Thanks, mate. If you're asking who I think, well, so I've got a bit of a tickly throat there. I think with Newcastle, I think they probably will go quite far in the Champions League because they'll be ambitious enough, unfortunately. But I think it depends what their group stage is. It depends how they do. And obviously, they're going to make signings that are going to be good enough for that level. It's why, again, though, I've said loads of times, if Newcastle are trying to get into amongst that conversation and stay there, then I don't want anyone telling me expecting Sunderland to be a regular European challenging side in the Premier League within the next half a dozen seasons, if we run well, is delusional. Because if Newcastle going for Champions League and titles isn't delusional, then regardless of the money, us going for Europa League or Europa Conference League and trying to win the cups isn't delusional either. Dane says, for us to finish top 2, we'd have to spend over 20 mil because the way we go about business, it won't be good enough for top 2. That's why I think top 6 is the best we can go for. Maybe. Kind of get what you mean, but I think we've topped it. But this is what I mean. Because the reason I ask is because if you look at our fixtures in the first 2 months of the season, so what in August you got, is it Ipswich, Preston, Rotherham and Coventry? And then not in October, Jesus Christ. In September, you then got Southampton, QPR, Blackburn, Cardiff and Sheff Wed. Blackburn, Coventry and Southampton are games I would accept draws in. But the rest of them are winnable. And Ipswich will be a trickier game than people think it will be, actually. But I think we should still be looking to beat them. This is why, when you look at the fixtures we've got, if we've got winnable fixtures, we can't stupidly drop points. We need to be winning them. If you look at, again, in August as an example, like Preston and Rotherham, you need to be taking 6 points out of that, really. But again, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But this is why I'm saying, because the expectations, if people are saying top 2, then at the end of the day, we've got to be getting a good start in the first 2 months of the season. And again, it could be that, say, Russell Martin at Southampton, it could be that his method and style takes a while to set in. That could be it. It could be, like Leicester could take a while for that style to set in. Leeds need to get themselves sorted. That's why you need to get a good head start ahead of them, and then you've got a bit more wiggle room for error later on. Right, let's have a look. Next one. Auction Mackham top 6 and says Newcastle won't win the Champions League. Please don't. Please no. It was bad enough they finished there. Terry Ward, I just hope we don't change the coach if we go on a bad run. Terry, with all due respect, I think, unfortunately, that's probably going to be inevitable. If for me, I think Tony Mowbray has definitely earned the right to get the whole of next season, providing we are in the mix at least for playoffs. Because I think now we finished there last year, I think that there's an expectation there now. And I don't think that's unreasonable either. You've just got to look at it and say that that's going to be how it is. If we start really, really poorly and we're not looking to be anywhere near the top 6, then that's inevitable that we are going to end up changing head coach. Kenny Doyle, join late. Any potential signings do you think we need names? All I'm going to say is one of my next videos that I'm going to be doing in the near future is 5 players I want Sunderland to sign this summer. So stick a neck out for that. I don't know why I did a wink there, so apologies if you wanted to click off and not come again. Ian Williams says, if we're not around top 6 Christmas, Mowbray will be gone. I think I agree with that. If we're not, if we're more than 4 or 5 points off the top 6. He probably will be, yeah. Rob Foster, if we don't make an attempt at least the top 6, I think Tony Mowbray will be under real pressure. Not saying I want that, however. You know, it's funny because, again, I think if we're competing around the playoffs, I think Tony Mowbray definitely deserves a shot next season, but we'll wait and see with that one. Terry Telly says, I've got 50 quid EW for the lads to get promoted. Oh, okay. For the lads to get promoted this season, either first or second place. Fingers crossed you're right in 12 months' time. Newcastle being Europa League and Champions League might come back to bite them, says Yorkshire Mackham, because they'll have more fixtures which will lead to fatigue. Well, we'll wait and see what happens with that one. I don't think Newcastle will get top 4 again next season, but I think we'll get around top 6. Darren Little, how much is Ellis Simms worth? Well, he's got a year left on his contract, so I'm probably saying about anything up to 4.5 million. I think any more than that's too much. Tom Wong says, I think we'll finish above Leicester and Leeds. The one to watch out for of the 3 that came down for me will be Southampton, as they have a lot of young talent on their books. I agree. I think Southampton will do the best of the 3 of them, actually. I think even if Ward-Prowse goes, they've got players like Joe Rebo, if they still keep Che Adams and Adam Armstrong. Have they still got Kyle Walker-Peters, or am I making that up? If they have, then that's another player who he doesn't go should be good enough for the Championship. Donald Doyle says, absolutely, mate. As a Liverpool fan myself, Sunderland have every right to expect to compete for around top half Europa League push if people say Newcastle should be a Euro Champions League top 6 team. Absolutely. Like, you know, and at the end of the day, the one thing I will admit about the Mags takeover that should benefit Sunderland really is that people with similar amount of money, maybe not the Saudis, obviously, but people like with a really, really rich backing and want to take us to the next level, because that's happened with Newcastle, people should be looking at Sunderland, who are a massive club in their own right and have underachieved for decades now, really. They should be looking at us and going, well, hang on, why can't we get them to compete regularly for Europe? We're a big enough club for it. Why not? Again, and I know we've got to earn the right, obviously. We've got to be ran well. But I think if you look at likes of Brighton, if they can do it, if West Ham can do it, if Wolves can do it, if Burnley can qualify for it, I see absolutely. Give me a reason why. And Leicester, even though they won the league, obviously, I'm not expecting that. But if they can do it, we're bigger than all of them. Why shouldn't we be looking to do that? In my opinion. Let's see. Hit the like button, boys. Yes, Telly. Thanks very much for saying. We've got 35 likes. Right, come on. How about this? Let's see if we can get to 50 likes. If we don't reach it, we don't reach it. But let's give it a go anyway. Ian Wilkinson. It showed last season Simms needs a partner of sorts. Not for me. Disagree personally. I think Simms. I think Simms is someone that we should be going all out for, in my opinion. Peter, but that's fine, Ian, if you disagree, by the way, just to put that out there. Peter Harvey, we need to win our home games, take one game at a time. Playing in Europe is not easy. We want the Mags in the FA Cup. I personally don't, because I want to be able to beat them. But I do get your point. I think if you're looking at it, right, home form is a massive thing that needs to improve next season. I think we won, including the Luton playoff game, out of 24. I believe we only won 8 games out of 24 at the Stadium of Light, and which isn't good enough, by the way. So I think we need to. It's our away form that got us into the playoffs. So home form needs to be better. The one slight thing that I think will help with that is if we stop giving away silly goals, and I know the brand of football we play is really good, and I like watching it from an attacking point of view. But I do think we need to balance that with being better defensively, because I think that will give us a better chance of getting up than people think. Ian Graham says, we need a huge improvement on home form. Completely agree. Then he says, I've heard a few people say we might have 2 new signings in the next week. If so, also, if it's true, I hope it's a striker and an experienced central midfielder. We'll wait and see whether that's the case. Obviously, it could be, look, this phone has got sources at the club. Tomato ketchup and mayonnaise. So we'll wait and see what happens with that one. Yorkshire Mackham, realistically, how do you think we will start off in the Championship? Well, put it this way. In the first 9 fixtures, so I'll reiterate them again. Ipswich at home, Preston away, Rotherham at home. What was the next one? Coventry away, Southampton at home. Yes, it's sad. I know these fixtures already. What was it? Southampton after that. QPR away, Blackburn away, Cardiff at home, Sheffield Wednesday away. That's 27 points up for grabs there. And for me, you need to be targeting around 20 points, I think. If you're wanting to be pushing for at least a top 6 spot, if not a top 2 spot, you need to be winning the winnable fixtures there and at least avoiding defeat against sides around you. Or maybe lose 1 or 2 at very most. Says playing in Europe is not easy. Want Magpies in the FA Cup. I agree that playing in Europe isn't easy, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't be aiming for it. Yorkshire Mackham, okay. Then he says Carlos Alcaraz could rip the Championship up apart for Southampton. Possibly. We'll wait and see. Rob Foster says, would like Simms, but I don't want the club to get involved in a bidding war. It might be that if it could be evidence to give him a new contract and he ends up coming to us and goes out on loan later in the window. We don't know. Danny Moon, top two unrealistic. 12 months ago, we just got out of League One and we're still rebuilding. A repeat of this season is still a success. I think finishing in the top six is a success, but I think finishing below that is a failure. I don't necessarily expect to go up this season, but if we finish, say, fifth and got to the playoff final, then it's at least a progression. I know that football isn't always linear, but at the same time, I feel like you should be looking for top six. I think any lower than that isn't good enough. David says Simms needs to work on his first touch and is poor in the air for his size. That's your opinion, and Ian agrees with you, but I disagree. I think, say, poor in the air, maybe he could be better in the air. I disagree. I don't think his first touch is that bad. I really don't. I don't get it personally, but that's just my view. I think what people forget when they say Simms isn't good enough is that conveniently forget is that he actually scores goals. And I think, but we bear in mind he was out. He had 7 goals in 17 appearances, and 3 of them, which was Luton, Huddersfield, and Blackburn, were all substitute appearances. Blackburn's case was like 15 minutes from the end, and he went off at Reading after half an hour being injured. But again, it's all my opinion. Let's have a look. Jeff, absolutely already thanks very much. Come on, 7 more people come on. Please. That'd be nice. Tom says, it's funny how West Ham won a European competition with David Moyes at the helm, one of the worst Sunderland managers ever. I'm not giving that waste of space any airtime. Stephen Thornton says, top 6. Donald Law says, what fixture are you looking forward to the most? Hopefully Sheffield Wednesday at home if we've already got a top 2 place. Or at least, or even Wembley. Maybe a playoff final next year at Wembley if we get promoted back to the Premier League. Okay, my Palo de Canio, no tomato ketchup. Don't get me. Oh God, Palo de Canio, Jesus Christ. Dane says Leeds at home. Like we said before, Michael, promotion needs to happen within the next 2 seasons. I completely agree with you. I think I don't expect to go up next season, but I would expect it the year afterwards. I think in the next 2 years we need to be back in the Premier League because I think I said before 5 years. The minute we got to the Championship, within 5 years, be back in the Premier League. I've since brought that down to 3 years, including last season, because I think we've proved that we've got a good enough squad. Maybe, well, again, who knows? We'll wait and see what the future brings. Peter Harvey, watch goal was Sunderland's best goal of the season last year. Jack Clark goal away against Reading. What did the Mackhams think? Jack Clark away at Reading. And the fact that that was somehow not even nominated for goal of the season is an absolute disgrace, in my opinion. It just shows a lot of people at EFL don't know what they're talking about. And it's not just us, by the way. A lot of neutrals have said that that was a great goal. Sam, quick question, random question before I go. Have you watched the Clone Wars? Yes. I'm assuming you mean the 2008 version, the 3D animated version, not the version that came out in between episodes 2 and 3 when they were coming out. But if you're meaning the 2008 Clone Wars, absolutely. It starts off a bit meh, but the latter seasons are great. And that last story arc, the last 4 episodes of the Clone Wars, some of the best Star Wars I've ever seen, and that's saying something. All right, let's have a look. Then, because of last season, expectations will be higher, and rightly so. Again, shows the size of the club. Completely agree. Tom Oxon, Ian says 50. Yippee! It hasn't come up on here, but it must have come up for you guys. Well, fair enough. If I have reached it, then thank you very much. Much appreciated. Tom says, I think if we don't go up this season, we'll have a new manager next year. Yeah, I think I'd agree. If Mowbray doesn't get us up then this season, then I think it's thanks for what he's done. He's definitely contributed. I've got a lot of time for him. But then we need to move on to get better. Right, guys, I'm going to leave it there. There you go. 51. It's just come up on here a bit later, but there you go. Thanks very much to everyone who watched. It was good. It's got a bigger response than I was expecting, actually. Do you want me to do more of these as we build up to come up to the new season? Maybe do these on a weekly basis, and we could just sit and just have a random chat for an hour and see what happens. But no, thanks ever so much, guys, for the support. And let me know, by the way, and while Thane's there, let me know if you want us to do more, like a couple of collab videos, like as in like what we did with the season review and the state of play things, because I actually think that I think he'd be willing to do it regularly, but to address this here, Thane's not going to be coming back to YouTube on a permanent as a regular basis as he was before, but I enjoy doing the videos with him. I think he does, so we'll wait and see what happens. Last comment, I'll quickly read out the long one. I'm curious how Leeds will, from Donald Doyle again, Liverpool fan, curious how Leeds will cope with Daniel Farke after the drop. Proven he's able to provide promotion at the Championship, but I think it'll take him longer to lay his foundation at Leeds. Well, for Sunderland's perspective, really hope so. Penny will pundit, yes, but only when things not on this time of the month. Oh my God. The Auction Rack and brilliant live stream. Thanks very much. Thanks very much to everyone. He is. There's it. I'll be back before the start of the season for a little preview of the season. There you go. Done it. Thane's coming back. I promised. Thane's coming back for the start of the season. Right, Peter Harvey. Thanks very much. Thanks everybody. Take care. Love yous all lots. Support is epic. And stay safe as always. And until next time, how are the lads?